What is it about spices and Hausa people?
Well, you know, it gives three things. One, it gives the smell of the food itself.
Okay.
When the woman is preparing, so the husband will be happy and will be deterring, and then the wife will be looking him by the side to know that the husband is even jittered. And then at the time when the husband is also eating, it also gives her an impression that he will be smiling, you know.
Oh, really?
So that makes her feel happy and feel that she really owned the husband.
Aha. In the words of Chinua Achebe, who was a Nigerian novelist, poet, and critic, he once said, "A man who calls his kinsmen to feast, does not do so to save them from starving. They all have food in their own homes. When we gather together in the moonlight village ground, it is not because of the moon. Every man can see it in his own compound. We come together because it is good for kinsmen to do so." And also in the words of Malcolm Forbes, who was an American entrepreneur and politician, most prominently known as the publisher of Forbes magazine, once said, "Diversity, the art of thinking independently together." My last quote for today will be from Hillary Clinton, an American politician and diplomat who served as the 67th United States Secretary of State under President Barack Obama from 2009 to 2013. She once said, "What we have to do is to find a way to celebrate our diversity and debate our differences without fracturing our communities." Now let's see how this quote relates to what we'll be discussing today. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We're reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. Who are the Hausa people? The Hausa people or tribe are an ethnic group that lives in the northwestern region of Nigeria and the southern region of Niger. The Fulani people are another ethnic group that also inhabits these regions. While the Hausa population is much larger, some Fulani have managed to position themselves as a ruling class among the Hausas. The Hausa people speak the language Hausa, which the Fulani have also adapted. The Hausa people are known for their trading locally and long distance. Due to their farming practices, they yield more than they need, which allows their people to have time to hone their skills at crafts, such as leatherworking, among other skills. Leather goods and tourist crafts are quite famous with the Hausa people. Now let's talk about the history of the Hausa people. The true origin of the Hausa people is unknown. The common hypothesis is that the Hausas were indigenous people living in Sahara Desert. These indigenous people all spoke a common language, which is now called Hausa language. The Hausa people migrated from Nubia, now northern Sudan, between 500 to 700 CE. They had been relocating west from Nubia to Niger and mixing with the populations in that region. The Hausa would establish some strong state in Niger. The powers in the region had declined in the previous centuries, and with the addition of the Hausas in the area, they soon emerged as the new power. In the 14th century, the Islamic faith came to this area. Most Hausa are very devoted Muslims, and they pray to Allah 5 times a day and believe Muhammad is his prophet. The Islamic faith and Muslim brotherhood have influenced almost all aspects of Hausa culture, including clothing, art, and laws. Some Hausa are who live in rural communities are not Muslims, and they are called Muguzawa. The Muguzawa worship spirits of nature. And now let's go to the most frequently asked questions about the Hausa people. What is special about Hausa culture? Many things I will tell you are special about the Hausa culture. A few examples of the uniqueness are their colorful wardrobes, their interesting sports, and their historical legends of kingdoms. Now, here are other countries of the Hausa ethnic population distribution by country of indigenization outside Nigeria and Niger. You have Ivory Coast, Sudan, Cameroon, Chad, Ghana, Central African Republic, Eritrea, Benin, Equatorial Guinea, Togo, Congo, Gabon, Algeria, Gambia. And then let's move to sports. The Hausa culture is rich in traditional sporting events such as boxing, which is called dambe, stick fight, which is called takai, wrestling, which is called kokawa, and so many others that were originally organized to celebrate harvest, but over the generations developed into sporting events for entertainment purposes. We'll go to food, which is my best part. The most common food that the Hausa people prepare consists of grains such as sorghum, millet, rice, or maize, which are grounded into flour for a variety of different kinds of dishes. This food is popularly known as tuwo in Hausa language. Usually, breakfast consists of cakes and dumplings made from grounded beans and fried, and they are also fried, and this is known as kose, or made from wheat flour soaked for a day, fried and served with sugar or chili, known as funkaso. But both of these cakes can be served with porridge and sugar, known as kunu or cocoa. Lunch or dinner usually feature a heavy porridge with soup and stew, known as tuwo da meya. The soup and stew are usually prepared with grounded or chopped tomatoes, onions, and local spices. Now, spices and other vegetables such as spinach, pumpkins, and okra are added to the soup during preparations. The stew is prepared with meat, which can include goat or cow meat, but not pork, due to the Islamic food restrictions. Beans, peanuts, and milk are also served as a complementary protein diet for the Hausa people. The most famous of all Hausa food is most likely suya, and that is my best part. The spicy shish kebab, like skilled meat, which is popular food item in various parts of Nigeria, is enjoyed as a delicacy in much as West Africa as balangu or gachi. Let's go to the literature. Hausa language has been written in modified Arabic script known as Ajami since pre-colonial times. But then we'll leave you with all that story because I already have my guest in the studio. I am so excited to talk about this Hausa people. And my guest on the show today is Dr. Yahuza Getso. He will be talking about the Hausa people and will today be able to understand and appreciate the Hausa culture. Welcome to The Conversation. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you've actually missed out on the introductory part of the show because I was so excited to talk about the Hausa people today. But then my guest is already seated in the studio. Yahuza Getso will be talking to us and helping us to understand, appreciate the Hausa culture. Welcome to the show, Dr. Yahuza Getso.
Good afternoon. Well done, viewers. Thank you for having me.
Great. Okay, so before we go ahead, I was trying to find out how do you welcome people?
Well, you know, we welcome people by saying Sanida Zua.
Oh, okay.
Maraba, Barka da Warhaka, Ya Hanya. You know, when you say Barka da Zua, it's like someone that arrived. And probably you are expecting or you are not expecting.
Oh, okay.
When you say Barka da Warhaka, it's like you are trying to kind of make the person feel at home, that he is welcomed. When you say Maraba, it's a more receptive word in terms of accommodation, in terms of emotion, in terms of feeling, in terms of psychomotic, in terms of psychology, in terms of theology, in terms of theory of understanding and theory of common liberation, making the person to feel liberalized and to feel part of the system. And as well, Sanida Zua is like kind of gingering, giving the person a kind of more extended credit of his arrival, not only saying, you're welcome highly. Just like in some cultures, you realize that besides saying, hi, hello, you're welcome, they will go rush and hug the person as part of the entertainment for a liberal accommodation and the alike. So we have many ways. Sometimes through our faces, because the children will run away. Oh yo yo, oh yo yo. Sometimes even
is that Hausa or Yoruba? I used to think that that language is slang in Yoruba culture.
You know, I want to tell you that, you know, you made mention in your introduction that Hausa are different from Fulani, which I quite disagree.
Okay, so no, let's go back, because I keep hearing people say that I am Fulani, I'm not Hausa. You can
separate, it's not true. There is no way you can separate Hausa from Fulani.
Oh, but then we've seen most Fulanis who say they are not Hausas.
History, that is not true. The Hausa in the history, when you go back to most of the Central Africa and East Africa, where you have most of the Swahili, you know, those who know the Swahili, the accent, the phonology, the syntax, the morphology, the psychology of the language, and the cultural and the ethical values, you cannot kind of make it to vary from what really the Hausa are practicing in Nigeria, Togo, Ghana, and all the listed countries as mentioned in your introduction. So Hausa are merely traders that also move from one place and another. The issue of Maguzawa is something that comes at a much later days, after thousands of donkey years of untraced history of Hausa people, because they are people who move around with those cultures and the passions. They have passion for all that you have outlined in the presentation you have made earlier. And so that's alike. If you go to some part of the, in the Amhara in Ethiopia and its neighborhood, other countries that within the neighborhood, there are a lot of words. There are a lot of morphological and phonological and synthetic words that have accents, that have a clear kind of, you cannot demarcate it from the Hausa accents. And like Hausa borrowed a lot from Arab because of the trading, trans-Saharan trade mixed up, and because of the common cultures. Not only Islam that come and made Hausas without culture. It's kind of a mixed reaction. It's a kind of a mixed culture. It's a kind of a mixed emotion. It's a kind of a mixed delusion between the cultural and ethical value between those in the Central Africa, those in the West Africa. And when you go back, you realize that there are a lot, because Hausas are also in the thousands days, they have been into hunting, they have been into cattle rearing also, so they have been into trading. So the mixed up of kind of that made them to be the traders of most of the things that you have mentioned, which are part of the products or produce or part of the items that are being found from the animals, from the cows, from the sheep, from the goats, and alike, kind of made it. So there are a lot of intermarital relation. And it is that intermarital relation that started much longer, even before the arrival, even before the arrival of those who came and Islamized Hausa and Fulani. Those things.
Did you just say those who came and Islamized Hausa and Fulani?
Yes,
they were not originally Islams? Is that what you're saying?
Is Arab. Mostly the people came from the Arab nations, and there is a person called Tariq bin Abdul Aziz. This Tariq bin Abdul Aziz, there are some argument in the historical perspective that Tariq bin Abdul Aziz migrated as a result of trade. He was going to part of the Arab nations where Islam has already been established. So he embraced Islam, and then he was also supported to come back to some part of the Africa in the Egyptian peninsula, in the Sudan kingdom, and the Southern Sudan kingdom, which was being called, the Sudan means black. Nothing, so every part of the black nations, you can call it Sudan. It doesn't give any separate meaning. It doesn't kind of, but much later, when during the pre-colonial and during the colonial administration, you know, the colonies, they came with the 7 missions.
Okay.
One of which to understand the environment. 2, after understanding the environment, they study the administration. Because in all parts of the East Africa, Central Africa, West Africa, all were areas where they found the Hausas and the Fulani and the mixed up of the Trans-Saharan trade and the Arab African trades, they found us with our traditions. They found us with our administration. They found us with our system of governance and operating system of even logistics and procurement and supply chain mechanism, as well as the old aspect of the business administration was available. So looking into that, you can say that, and then number 4, they also want to find out what are the available mineral resources.
Okay, so
so they struggle on it.
Doctor,
and then they also study the intellects.
Okay, which
they borrowed a lot of intellect, and
just so we don't take the other part of the show and then bring to the forward. Now, before we get to that extent, I've heard people keep asking, where exactly did the Hausa people originate from?
Well, like I told you, there wasn't really. There are a lot of argument in the cycle of the history scholars of the history. Those combine Islamic historian and the conventional historians and the modern historians, because there were a lot of archaeological arguments. There were a lot of physiological and psychological arguments. And there are a lot of originating arguments of where really the origin of the Hausa. But when you look at the complex of what I have discussed, or what I have mentioned, of the relationship, the tribe of Amhara, in most of their words, there are thousands and hundreds and thousands and millions of Hausa words.
Okay.
And Amhara are more now in Ethiopia, and as the Swahili is also in Somalia and some of those countries in that eastern part of Africa, and also any extent where you have people speaking most of the also the combined black Arabist of either Sudan, either Mauritania, part of Algeria, and even in the Egypt. You realize that there are a number of phonological and synthetics and morphological accents that have a link that you cannot really have a kind of divisive major that you can easily say, no, these are really, you can separate them from Hausa.
Okay.
And likewise, when you come to the Hausa language, not really the Hausa language that have been mixed up now with a lot of Igbo in it, with a lot of Yorubanization in it, with a lot of Epipio and Kataf and the other things, with a lot of combined Pidgin English in it. When you look at the pure Hausa, because you hardly find an average Hausa of my age now that can speak for 30 good minutes
without adding English,
without adding either English or Pidgin
or slang,
or Igbo or slangs or even phonological and morphologically, you know, he will kind of find it very, very difficult to look at some of the syntax of how he pronounced or he or she pronounced the word. It is just like common. When a houseman is reading a number for you, when you ask what is your phone number, he will say 080, pipe. You know, and a Yoruba man, when you ask him to read the number for you, he will say 080. You understand? He cannot say 080, but 080.
But everybody have their own numbers. Like you have in Yoruba, they have, if they want to say one, they say Oka. So what is it for you people?
Yeah, but like I told you, a Hausa man can say 0 because we have the word Z. and we have it in our accent, and we have it in our syntax, and we have it in a phonological and morphological, and the construction of the words, and building of letters or a pronouncement. When you look at the old part of the organs of communication, organs of speech that you have from the lungs down to the end of the teeth, the tongue itself, and then the influence of the nose. You hardly, in most of in the very few language of the phonological and morphological and synthetic presentation being made by Hausa man, there you realize there are some influence of so, but we have a lot of pie. Yeah. So, so like also an Igbo man, when you want to give you number, you also have there are some other combined weaknesses. So this have made it very, very difficult now to have a very purely speaking Hausa person, unless you go to the very remotest part of the Hausa lands.
Which is where?
Which is when I say remotest, I'm talking of most of the difficult terrain and hard to reach, especially in areas, even though there is no settlement, there is nowhere that you can move in any part of the Hausa lands, either in Nigeria, either in Mali. I want to tell you that I have been to Mali, I have been to Senegal, I have been to Gambia, I have been to Libya, I have been to Algeria, I have been to Mauritania, I have been to Benin, I have been to Togo, I have been to Ghana, I have been to Gambia, I have been to almost all the African countries. And one thing that will interest you is the fact that my own case is a peculiar case, whereby I because of some part of the area of the doctrine of my profession, that is macro level research, investigation, and what do you call it, intelligence search and intelligence gathering, intelligence monitoring. So I focus on most of those hard to reach and difficult terrain. So as a result of the vast movement I have had, anytime I'm speaking, if I get to Sokoto now, I can turn my accent and start speaking the Sokoto phonological and morphological perspective of the Hausa, and then they will still be laughing at me and assume that I came from Maiduguri. And if I go to Kano, my state, especially in my own local government, when I'm talking to most of my peer group, they will start saying, you have mixed up your Hausa.
You're now butty.
You understand?
Let me use this line.
So it's like I become a kind of an exported person. And even though sometimes when I'm making a Hausa presentation in Hausa, I can dare I tell you that I can spend more than 3 hours without inclusion of any other language, despite the fact that I speak Arabic fluently.
All right.
I speak English, a very good working language of English. Like anybody who is listening can understand some of the morphological and ability to. And also the little French. So there are those influence of all those ingredients that is making it very, very difficult. All right, we have
to manage our time. We actually due for a break. So, but in the next 3 minutes, I won't go back to that question, that argument of where you have an Hausa man, you speak Fulani to the person will tell you, I'm an Hausa man, I'm not a Fulani. Or the Fulani, or the Fulani person will tell you, I am not Hausa, I'm Fulani. So help us demystify that argument in the next few minutes.
Any Fulani man that look at you and say, I'm a Hausa, I'm not a Hausa, I'm a Fulani, I can tell the person that he is just deceiving himself, because of the long outstanding intermarital perspective, even before the emergence of Islamic perspective. Because Fulanis are mostly the cattle breeders and the cattle rearers, and while they rely more than 80% on the perspective of the trading and the other cultural values of their economic and political well-being, on the emergence of the Hausa, who, like I told you, that it will be very, very difficult for anybody to separate, to say that this is really the origin of the Hausa, or it originated from the Maguzawa. Maguzawa are not really, doesn't really have a long-standing linguistic relation and historical perspective, because they stopped somewhere around 13 something or thereby, or whatever you may call it. But when you look at the relationship between the distance of Daura, because many people are saying the origin of Hausa is coming from Daura, Suru, Bayajid, this and that. All that story, history, which I will never accept it. Because my argument is, I have been to East Africa, and I have intermingled with Swahilians, and I was also in many parts of the hard to reach and difficult terrain of Ethiopia, where Amharic language is being spoken. And I realized that there are thousands and hundreds of words that have relationship with that of Hausa. So when I look at the variety, the diversity of the geographical diversity and the distance between Ethiopia, where Amharic is being spoken, Somalia and other countries in the Eastern Africa, where a lot of Swahili is being spoken. And when I look at the construction, the sinological and synthetic and theological and morphological and bibliological component of the language itself, of how you look at the writings of the Swahili.
Let's put a pin there.
It's very difficult.
Let's put a pin there. We'll go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue this interesting conversation on the Hausa people with Dr. Hausa Getsu. I will see you after this time out. Join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you've actually missed out on the best part of the show, but then we're going to the most interesting part. And we're still trying to learn about the Hausa culture. My guest is still Dr. Hausa Getsu. Okay, before we went on that break, we've actually talked about the history of the Hausa people. Now let's jump to other things, because we're trying to manage our time so that we can also talk about the Fulanis. Now, for the Hausa people, kindly talk to us about their food. What is the Hausa people's best food and sporting event?
Well, you know, Hausa people have variety of foods in hundreds, but majorly being produced from corn, millet, maize, and a lot of beverages, because there is what we call there is this leaf. You know, we have cucumber, we have cabbage, we have carrot, we have bitter leaf, we have garden egg, we have moringa, a lot of rich foods. So they are in varieties, and there is always a different way of producing them, and it gives a different taste of how they are produced. So our women have not really borrowed too much, despite the fact that we have intermingled and interacted, or we have been interacting with a different part of the world. Wherever a Hausaman finds himself, even in England, he prefers to go and get swallow, that is stew. And he prefers either the miyan kuka or the miyan kuka, that is okro, or what do you call this kuka? So, and the rest. And then kunu, kunun aya, kunun zaki. We have so many things. Look it, zobo. You know, even the leaves of zobo, which is called yakwa, is something that how someone use it. And then onion. We have sugar potatoes. Of course.
That's the sweet potato.
Sweet potato. In many other parts of the Hausa land, we have started also producing the Irish potatoes. So we have started. So there are a few of other things that we converted into our food. But not that we converted it into our food, but we are still using it to produce the same type of different variety of foods that our ancestors and grand whatever have been producing.
All right.
So there is no really much difference. And if you go to other parts of the world, almost, I have been to many countries in Asia. I was in Afghanistan, I was in India, I was in Pakistan, I was in Bangladesh, I was in Sri Lanka, I was in Myanmar. And I realized that almost the ingredients that we are using in producing the food in the Hausa land, that's what I found in the West Africa, in the East Africa, and the Central Africa.
But then we noticed,
even though I have not been to South Africa,
okay, well,
so I cannot speak much on that.
But we noticed that Hausa people like spices. What is it about spices and Hausa people?
Well, you know, it gives three things. One, it gives the smell of the food itself.
Okay.
When the woman is preparing, so the husband will be happy and will be deterring, and then the wife will be looking him by the side to know that the husband is even jittered. And then at the time when the husband is also eating, it also gives her an impression that he will be smiling, you know.
Oh, really?
So that makes her feel happy and feel that she really owned the husband. So that is why we are very submissive. Even though in many cases we used to be radical and we used to be hard and difficult. The Hausa husband to their wife, by the culture did not teach us to be radical. The culture taught us to be friendly, to be diplomatic, but because of the mixed reactions and the change in the societal and ethical values and some of the inheritance and the borrowers of other cultures, that is making it very difficult for some of us. We are being too radical and too difficult on our wives, which is not supposed to be.
All right.
Because the couples are expected to be a partners. It is not about a dog and a rat. No, it's supposed to be a kind of a relationship, a coordinated relationship where you can mobilize and dialogue and you know, and things like that.
All right, so because you talked about dialogue, our time is fast spent, but before let's round up on this thought, because you talked about women also. I'm going to ask you two questions and I'd like you to take them together in 3 minutes if you can help us. Now the first is about, I used to hear that word kaya mata, and then I know that it's from the Hausa people that I first started hearing it. So what is it with Hausa people and kaya mata? How do they used to, what is that thing they used to mix that makes the woman would tell you that I have prepared kaya mata for my husband because I want, or someone's husband, and then definitely that thing works. So what is it about? Tell us the myth or the belief behind kaya mata. That's the first question. And then the second question is that most people would always believe that insecurity started from the north, especially from the Hausa people. Help us to demystify this.
Well, for the case of insecurity, it's more or less a mixed reaction for something to do with the envy from external forces, political and economic forces.
Did you say envy?
Yeah, it is in relation to the available mineral resources, gold, diamond, and other things that are available. Because if you look at most of the places where all this crisis is happening, they have too many expensive, precious mineral resources. When you turn to the issue of kaya mata is invigoration, it's an innovative aspect that has been introduced into the Hausa land, into the Hausa women. But it's not.
It was not there before?
It wasn't there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There is a belief of a variety of foods that you can make sure that you prepare your daughter when you are marrying her out, so she can concentrate. But those kaya mata, which most of the women are using in their vagina and so on, and what maybe, you know, it's not really actually part of the Hausa doctrine. They are not part of the Hausa culture. They are an innovation inherited or invigorated or innovated or borrowed from other mixed reaction through from other cultures through mixed reaction, interaction with people from other parts of the world, the Arab, the Sudanese, the Shua Arab, the Kanuri and the alike.
All right.
Most of those things actually are not really from the Hausa land.
Okay, so
it was kind of innovative.
Okay.
But you know, the problem of the Hausa man or Hausa culture is whatever, if Hausa language meet any language, it destroy that language. It take over. It take over any community Hausa people where there are many. They will definitely keep killing the language and then killing the culture. And then also if they borrow a culture, they will transform it into something else that you assume it is their own. But if you go deep to find out, you find out that in many cases it wasn't there, but they borrowed it and they kind of articulate it to the extent that the owner of that culture will not even understand that this is his own culture that has been transformed.
All right, because we've actually had quite a number of, we've been discussing about different histories. We've talked about the Igbos, the Yorubas, and now we're talking about the Hausa. So before we leave, we're always having that part where you tell us, how do you, when you meet a new person, you want to tell the person, oh, I appreciate you, or I love you. We are trying to appreciate our unity in diversity. So what is that word that you tell someone that you just met for the first time and tell the person, hey, my brother, hey, my sister,
well, there are
in Hausa language?
Yes, there are 3 things. One, we use the emotion. That is to send the message, the emotional message.
Okay.
And then the second, madalla. The word madalla, repeating it, how someone will be repeating it as many times as possible. Just to make sure that you understand that he appreciates you.
Okay.
And he doesn't hate you. And then, bakimu, maraba, that is our guest. Maraba, sannuku da zuwa. So we are that kind of appreciative community.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Yawasa.
Thank you for having me.
It's actually been a wonderful time having this discussion. Thank you so much for at least teaching us the Hausa people and their culture.
Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure, even though time is not on our side.
Yes, most definitely.
All the best.
All right, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll definitely get another guest, and this time we'll be talking about the Fulani people. So stay tuned on The Conversation, and we will be right back. See you later. Thank you so much. So, like, how do you say thank you?
Mieti.
Mieti. All right, thank you. Mieti Hassan Sadona.
Yawa Mieti.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation, reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you actually just joined us, you've missed out on the first segment of the show where we talked about the Hausa people, and then we're able to learn about the Hausa people from Dr. Yahuza Getso. And now we're moving to the Fulani culture, so we can be able to learn, understand, and appreciate the Fulani man or Fulani woman anywhere you see them. And today, my next guest is Hassan Sadona, who is a cultural leader. He'll help us to understand the culture, the food, the dance, the sporting events of the Fulani people. Great to have you on the show today, sir.
Thank you very much, Annabelle, for having me now.
You're welcome. Okay, so like I was saying before we started the show, that we're going to start with the fact that when you talked about Sadona,
yes, and
then you were explaining something to us, because we've actually done a conversation on the Yoruba people, and then we were able to understand the meaning of Are and Nakakamfo. And then you said that's like the Fulani meaning of Sadona. But help us to understand and appreciate what exactly is Sadona, and why do you have that title? What does it entail?
Normally, you know, the Fulanis are one of the most travelers in the sub-Saharan region in West Africa or in Africa at large.
Oh, generally? Or?
Yes, generally.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just only those people that, the cattle rustlers.
Yes, that is why I said they are travelers.
Oh, okay,
they always move with their wealth, and that is why they are cattle rearers. And they always make a history of trying to have, what do we call it, a kind of clan. And wherever they found themselves, they try to establish a leadership. They don't stay without administration. Because as we have seen them, they are one of the few oldest tribes that have education, be it whether, what do we call it, religion education from Islamic perspective, or come to the Western education now. So before the Western education, the Western education met them with their traditions. And this tradition, there will be, there is, what do we call it, like a president. Okay. In every cabinet of president, you will be here, there is people like Matawale, there is Tafida. If you know the late Umaru Musa, he is the Tafida of Katsina. He is the Tafida of Katsina. And you cannot stop all those things from every clan of Fulani. So they try to establish a cultural leadership. We call it Ardo. That is the emir, the head of the... Oh. So in this Ardo, that is the head, the emir, or the chief, or the leader of that community, then they will give you some title. The title of Chiroma. If you find out the minister, what is Chiroma, maybe you will find that he is a minister of interior. Then if you find Sardauna, you find he is a minister of defense. If you find Sarkinyaki, you find that he is a minister of this and that. So this is how those traditional names have been acclaimed, have been sorted from the tradition of Fulani community, who, if you look at even the Usman Anfodio, Kalifesi, he is a Fulani man by tribe. And when he moved and come to the Sokoto to establish the Kalifesi, it is there he established all the tentacle of administration. And whenever you have this administration, you will have this sort of names. And that is why even that is why because of the tradition are almost the same with that of Hausa, not quite far from their culture, you find they are bearing almost the same titles. When you said Lamido, that is the emir, it is the, what do we call it, an emir in a Fulani language. Then now if you go to Adamawa, you find that the emir of Adamawa, we call it Lamido Adama. If you go to Cameroon, or you go to Mali, or you go to Senegal, and so Gambia, where there are settlement of a large number of Fulani in number, you find this type of culture. So these are types of titles given based on what will be your performance in the cabinet of that leadership.
Oh, awesome. That's really an eye-opener. You've said quite a number of things that we can actually unbundle. Because you talked about Aldo, you talked about Lamido, you talked about Matawale. So
all those types
I actually thought that it is their name.
No.
Because I know people who bear such name. I know Umar Aldo, who is one of the former vice presidential aide.
Presidential aide.
And then we know Matawale, we know, but we thought that it's their name, not knowing that it's actually a title.
It's a title.
Oh,
only that
awesome.
If you happen to, sometimes when everybody knows that it's a title, let's say talk about Umar Ardo. Maybe he is not an Ardo, but his father or grandfather was an Ardo. Oh. So when he was born, he is Umar, the name of his grandfather. So happened to be the Ardo of that community. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. Especially his mother and the other wives of the man children cannot call their in-law. So, but they know he is an Ardo. So instead, since he has gotten the namesake of his grandfather, they will be calling him Ardo, Ardo. So some people are getting those names through that. That awesome. Is by birth.
Awesome, great. Yes. All right, so because there's quite a number of things you talked about, and when we had the talked about the Hausa culture, I asked Dr. Yahuza, why is it that, is there this difference between the Hausa man and the Fulani man? Because sometimes I come across some people and then you ask them questions in a Hausa, they'll tell you, please, I'm not an Hausa person, I'm a Fulani. And then same thing with the Fulani people. So are there any discrepancy or any line between the Hausa man and the Fulani man?
Definitely, the discrepancies is just some of them cannot even speak Hausa.
That's the Fulani people.
That is, there are some Fulanis that cannot speak Hausa. Oh, you find a Fulani in Kogi State or in Kwara State. The emir of Kwara State is a Fulani by clan. It's not a Yoruba man. It's a sultanate. This is a transmission from the then Sheikh Usman Anfodio. So they are Fulanis. But even if you see a Fulani man rearing cattle inside a bush in Kwara or any part of Yoruba or Igbo land, he can speak Igbo, but he can't speak Hausa.
Oh, really?
Yes, there are Fulanis that are in Ibo, Enugu. There are some of my relatives that I knew that they are staying in Enugu. When they come to the north, they cannot speak Hausa. They can only speak Fulani full day.
What? But why is that?
The reason is Hausa is not their language. But the language that is their tribal language is Fulani. So they can only speak full day. So once you meet somebody like that and you think that he is a Hausa man, because there are some who felt generality of Hausa man ordinarily from the south means a Muslim. Some of them, this is what they see. When you come to the north, you will realize that there are Fulani, there are Kanuris, there are Hausas, there are Birom, there are Mishika, there are Janjo, there are Skataf, there are that is Baju, there are all those tribes.
So is there a common language for everybody?
The common language is that because Hausa is more acceptable in the society, Hausa acceptable, it is the most easiest language that you can speak. If you stay with them within a short period of time, you can able to understand Hausa language. But because of that, it becomes a common language in the north. So that is why the person that has never come to the north will think that everybody is a Hausa man. Or the highest thing that they come to know, those who start to, or who attended the Western education to the level of knowing there is something they call Hausa Fulani.
Yes.
So those Hausa Fulani.
At least we did that when we were in school.
But yes, the culture is that they have the same religion. Common religion is Islam. So that religion allowed intermarriage. And most of them today in the society, it is very real in the north, like Sokoto, Kano, Zamfara, Kebbi, Katsina, Kaduna, Jigawa, and Bauchi, and some states, to find out a family that doesn't have a Fulani man or a family that doesn't have a Hausa man. If either your mother is a Fulani or she is a Hausa, or either your father is a Hausa and your mother is a Fulani, those intermarriage has bring it more easier to have to call it a Hausa Fulani. But when you met somebody that you can tell him this is Hausa, or he will tell you, no, I'm not a Hausa man, I'm a Fulani by tribe. But he accepts a Hausa because ordinarily when he had somebody insulting a Hausa man, not because he is insulting Hausa because a Hausa is a Hausa. No, he is seeing him as a typical Hausa Fulani. Now that there is a lot of the crisis of banditry, which is the foot soldiers are Fulanis. Those mostly that you are seeing are Fulanis in the north. People terms it to be a Fulani act of evils and doing, but which is not true. When you go in, then you realize a lot of tribes are involved beyond your thinking. It's not only
even
Fulani,
more than, it's not even only Hausas.
Yes, a lot of tribes are now found within that criminality, because criminality doesn't have a boundary line. It does not identify someone as no, because he's an Igbo or because of this and that. When there is this, I have one of a friend. He's an army officer, senior officer. So a very tight friend of mine. So when he went, he was given a command in the south. So in the bunkers, when they arrested some, out of about 11 of them, 7 of them, they are northerners. But when you ask him where are you from? He will tell you Kano. Kano from where? And they say I'm from Minjibir, or I am from Kunya, all those type of places. But he has never been there. But he can speak the language, but he was born and brought up in Port Harcourt or Wari. So these are indigenous, or how would I call it, as long-time settlers in those areas. So he was astonished. These people, when you go to this Niger Delta something for a volunteer force, then you find Hausas people are met inside. Don't think that it's only the Ijo or the Ibibio or whatever. But now you go to the Igbo land, you find Fulanis in some acts that you will think. I have a friend, when he is speaking the language, Annabelle, you can't speak with him. He speak your core Igbo.
Yeah, I agree.
There was something that happened. I don't know. It involved a lawyer and a buyer. That is this property something business. So when they were talking every day, he refused to tell us that he has been. I knew he can speak Igbo, but he refused to tell us anything until the very day that the payment will take place. And the payment had to come from his own side because his boss gave him, go and get something. I want you to get something out of this so that you can solve your little problems. So when they comes, he said, lawyer, this is your friend. He starts speaking in Igbo. The lawyer was a kind of ashamed because somebody made him to look stupid. So these are it. If you know the former governor and former deputy speaker of Immerse of Nigeria, Ihodia, Emeka, what is his name? Ihodia. Do you know where was he born? He can speak Fulani more than a Fulani man. I don't know whether you know that. So the reason is that he grew in the society. That cannot make him to be a Fulani. He can only understand. But the Fulani people are very, they are this type of people, very shy. But they are very shy by nature. And they are very, they are very reserved. That is why you find out that very few people can able to speak Fulfulde who are not Fulani by origin. Okay. The reason is that they are very reserved. They don't believe in fast interaction. It's just like an Igbo man. He is reserved in his own language. You see, a very few people know how to speak their language because they hold their things very tight. Not everybody will come into, and the Fulani are like that. Sometimes not everybody. That is why I told you the commonest people that accept, are very common in accepting different tribes are Hausas. And that is why they have the wider perspective of language. Today, if you look at in Africa, they are either the second or the first outspoken language in Africa. Next or first ahead of Swahili, the indigenous tribes of Africa. So when you look at BBC, Voice of America, Deutsche Welle, and other they have been having this Hausa language and Swahili for a decade. But Hausa is growing faster in the society than the Swahili, because the Swahili they are not what do we call it? Welcoming. They are not welcoming. They don't welcome people anyhow. They stick to their tradition more than anybody. In what Sofat Fulani more, they stick to their tradition, culture, and values more than any other person. That is why they stand on that. Something with Kanuri that you are seeing. Okay, so what is this culture or value that is that you can attach? Immediately I see a Fulani man, I just know that with this culture or this tradition or this value or norm, this man is a Fulani man. Yes, but you know there is a the world has moved very fast. But in just 20, 30, 40 years back, when you see a Fulani, you don't need to ask him. You will see him with his stick. Secondly, his attires. If you see me like this, automatically before, you know that this man is a Fulani. But maybe a Yoruba or a Hausa man can wear it now. Exactly. Because it is a generation that have changed. Then secondly, you find out in his features, he always have a pointed nose. He's always, his ears are looking very shiny. Then you find out that he is always looking slim. That is why... But you're not looking slim now. Yeah, that is why a vulture. But if you remove this my tummy, I am not a fat person. It's just that tummy. When you see some of my relative, I am a twins. My twins brother is not fat as me. Only that he is huge by nature. But some of my elder brothers, my cousins, my even children, you see them like one. And they're very tall. When you know me before, you wouldn't believe that I'm the one that you know 20 years back. Because I'm a Jos, Sadona, very slim and looking fair, a Fulani village or whatever. Okay. That's what you call them. Okay, so another thing I always notice is that they're always tall. They have a particular kind of hair, and they're almost looking like is it Indians? They are just fine. Like when you see an Hausa person, just a Fulani person, just this person is too fine, like a Fulani people. So is that's one of them. Yes, that is what makes you, if you find out, you realize that you know, every tribe has an origin. Where do they come from? If you have been traveling, you go to Netherlands, you can find an Oyibo speaking Fulfulde. If you have been traveling to places like Iran and Iraq, you will see an Arab man, but you hear him speaking the language. You go to this Saudi that you are talking about, you see a white man speaking Fulfulde. So the belief is that they came from this either Europe or Middle East because they are herders. When you go to places like Madrid, Most of them, they are rare animals, whether sheep, whether cows. That is why we have in America, Southern America, you see cowboys. They are always on, what do we call it, horses, and rearing their cattle and whatever. So there is something they say called species in agriculture. So the Fulani species, in this one, let me use it this way, they are as bigger and wider than any other tribe, because you find them always attached to their their wealth, and the wealth is either cows, camels, sheep, goats, donkeys, all those type of things, donkeys and whatever. If you go to Spain, there is this day of celebration that they will go to fill the street and the road of Madrid in Spain with sheep, cows. You can't pass. And there is a time when they are passing. That is why when people are talking in Nigeria, see cows inside Abuja, is because they have not been traveling. People doesn't have a wider perspective. The notion given to them by seeing cows inside Abuja or whatever is a Fulani. Most of the cows are not belong to Fulani. Out of 99.9% inside this town, they are not belong to Fulanis. They are belong to maybe former AIG Igbo, former AIG Fulani, former AIG Yoruba, former General this, former Minister this. Let me tell you this, in this town, and you cannot touch it, not even environmental. Nothing will touch just cows. Wike came, and he made a statement that he will follow them. You see, small boy, they were interviewing him in the video. He said, "He can't send us. We will send him away."
Okay. Let's go back to enjoying the Fulani culture. Now, let's talk about the Fulani dressing, and I'm going to put them together so that we can unbundle them together in one breath, because so we can manage our time. Now we'll talk about the Fulani culture. What is their dressing rather? What is the dressing that you can find with the Fulani man? Secondly, is the food. What is the food that you know with the Fulani people? The food and the drink, and then also are there sporting events that you just know that this is for Yoruba people? They will tell you that is the Ayo or boxing. So what is it for the Fulani people?
The Fulani is Sharo.
What is Sharo?
Sharo is a culture normally they will invite, they announce every man. Most of the young men are the ones that are doing that. They will come and stay the way you are sitting down like this. He will come and sit down. He will tie a wrapper here. His chest will be naked. One of his brother will be standing here with a very stick on his can in his hand to be beating him on top of his chest.
Really?
Yes. Maybe someone can take 10 more than. And sometimes it because of a woman to marry, to see who is more brave.
Oh, I thought that stuff was just movies. We see that.
No, it's not a movie.
That's really
I saw it lively.
Oh, wow.
Yes, when we are small children, we were practicing it with our this, and we will go and get this banana this thing. We cut it, and then we will be beating each other. But when we grew up, the culture has gone. We have not met it. But still, they are doing it. Even here, some areas within the FCT. Kefi, example. But because sometimes when they do it, there will be fight, a lot of serious chaos. But it is a tradition.
So what are you trying to bring out from that? After flogging the person like 10,
then the woman that he want to get married to, she will say, yes, my
husband is a strong man.
Boyfriend is a brave man. I must marry him. Then she will marry you.
Awesome.
That is what was happening. Then secondly, there is what they do annually or times to times. They will call themselves everywhere. You can come from maybe Kefi, Suleja, what do we call it, this Kaduna Road, all these places, Abaji and whatever. They will meet to get here for almost 2 weeks. They are not doing anything. They will going to give their children, you know, in Fulani, they can give your son, who is 10 years now, a daughter of 7 months, that she will be my son, a wife, and it will going to be tied a kind of agreement. So in those,
really?
In those type of,
does it mean that you must marry that person that time?
That time, when she grow to fullest time, she will be your wife.
And she cannot look for somebody else.
No, she already knew that she has a tithe. Even if she will be having a boyfriend, she knew that her real husband is there alive, waiting for her.
What happens if she decides not to marry the person?
That is, sometimes it doesn't work. Crisis, she go to court, that she, or the elders, she will complain if she don't want, and he too, he might decide not to. But before, there is this discipline, you cannot say no to your elders who have, it's a kind of, when you get married, what God has bring together, nobody will put asunder. So it is a culture, a respected one. They will kill cows, kill goat, eat, and be doing all this culture of dancing, all those type of things. Then there is this culture of every year, and they will gather with their cows somewhere, then they will start having immunization. You understand what I'm saying? Then you will be seeing them cutting the ear of the cows, giving them a number.
The cows?
Yes.
Okay.
They do it assembled in one place. They will do immunization. Then anyone that has been immune, they will cut the kind of example that they have immunized that cow. All in thousands.
Whoa.
Yes. So then there are this culture, their food. You know, a Fulani man has a culture of taking milk. A natural milk, and then the one that has spent a night, they use it in what they call fura.
That's the fura, okay.
Fura. And these fura are of two categories.
Okay.
There is a one that when they just remove the milk, they will go and boil it. When it, what do we call it, boil. Then they will remove it and keep it aside to condense and cool down. So that one, you will hear it is just like a milk. When you buy a Dano or anything, buy a very good natural milk of the other
like the,
yes.
the evaporated milk?
Yes. So when in the morning, they will remove it and start putting fura, and then you will take a very, what do we call it, a rich milk with the fura and nono. And that is the common food everybody knows with them.
Oh,
anything
really?
Other than that is an addition of tuon and miyan kuka. But before, you see a Fulani man, he doesn't take okra. It's just okra, just come just
so
recently.
then is okra attached to Hausa people? Because I know the Hausa man talk about
people.
Oh, okay.
Yes, there are food that they doesn't eat. A Fulani man doesn't eat before anything bed. This bed that you are seeing, coming down to chicken.
Wow.
Yes. And there are, like me, I have never eaten, what do they call it, a rabbit. I can't eat a rabbit. I can't. This, what do we call it, a duck. What do we call duck? Geese. I can't eat a geese. As I'm talking to you, if even I ate it, when if it stays for 4 or 5 hours, you mention it is a geese, I will go to vomit. Not intentionally. Naturally,
you don't think it's just your psyche playing on you?
That's what I inherited. I knew that my parents doesn't eat chickens, neither fish. But you see, I'm eating fish because I'm a modern Sadona.
All right, so you were going to talk about the clothing.
The clothing is that normally before then, when you see a typical Fulani, you will see him with this type of cloth. You see the hands here are cut and whatever, a simple cloth that will not create a kind of difficulties in terms of moving his cows or whatever. Then their women will be tightening a wrapper and then having something, what they call it, a veil to put on. Okay. And it is a common one. That one is a type of dressing that you know. But you will see them, there will be, what do we call it?
The nose rings. A
nose ring. You see some of them even not nose ring, their ears, a very mighty one.
So all those paintings, all those paintings and then those marks, are they all actually part of your culture?
Yes. Marks, before even natural one that they caught, you see, those one give some people, they are from Soso clan. Okay. Like now, we have Toronkawa, we have Sulubawa, we have Jadanawa, we have, what do we call it, Yabaji. All those type of clans of Fulanis, they are there. So when you saw them with their marks then, you will quickly say, she's from Imo Ibo. no, Inugo Ibo, or that exactly Insuka, Okwige, and whatever.
All right, our time is fast spent. In fact, we're just enjoying ourselves learning from the Fulani culture. But before we go, we have a particular culture that we learn, that we always like to give. So before you leave, we'd like to hear you say in the Fulani culture, tell viewers who are Fulanis watching you, and tell them thank you for watching. Keep watching Kaftan Television, and wherever you are, make sure that you stay safe, avoid war, love your neighbors as you love yourself in Fufude.
Bandiraɓe men fulɓe min getti to gon on fuu keɓe wakkati gaɗon ka darki kaftan hollay on andinay on ɗawdorto e kaftan kadi taw on koye moɗon fuu jodde e yimɓe bandiraɓe moɗon eɓe joddi on jamu ɓuri ko ɗume, jamu arde faray en yeeso, jamu kan okkata leñol ñamki yeeso e jonde jam. Min getti, Kaftan yetti.
Thank you so much. So, like, how do you say thank you?
Mieti.
Mieti. All right. Thank you. Mieti Hassan Sadona.
Yawa, Mieti.
All right.
Annabelle.
Thank you so much for watching. It's been a wonderful time learning from the Fulani culture. And earlier we talked to Dr. Yahuza Getso on the Hausa culture, and now we've been talking to Hassan Sadona on the Fulani culture. It's been a wonderful time. Remember, we started from the Yoruba culture, we went to the Igbo culture. So very soon we will be going straight to Ibibio. We'll take tea, we'll take Idoma, we'll take even the Baggy people. We will definitely come to your neighborhood. So be rest assured, my next stop is in your village. I'll see you next time. My name is Annabelle Oji. God bless you and yours. God bless Nigeria. Mieti Nigerians.